backgrounds, as we've heard from the greetings. In light of this, and given the challenges of remote working conditions by interpreters, on the speeches or interventions from the original languages in which they were delivered will be considered authentic and worked from in compiling the report of the workshop. May I ask you to please turn off your camera and mute your microphone if you are not officially granted the floor, to ensure orderly and accurate recording of the proceedings, and also to optimize the bandwidth provisions. For questions and comments, you may wish to raise your hand or use the chat box by navigating through the icons provided at the bottom of the screen. If you are using a desktop or laptop, I'm not sure how it appears on your phones. Please provide your full name and affiliation when taking the floor. While using the chat box, please provide your full name and organizational affiliation, followed by your question or comment. And please note that for ease of administration, all PowerPoint presentations will be controlled by the Secretariat. Kindly note also that while running the PowerPoint presentation, there might be some slight time lag between the time the action is taken and the vision of the slide from your end. Please bear with us. If you wish to intervene using a PowerPoint presentation, kindly alert the Secretariat through the chat box now and transmit your presentation to us for a smooth running of the meeting. Once again, please turn off your camera and mute your microphone when not speaking. With housekeeping issues out of the way, it is my distinct pleasure to invite Ms. Sharon Spiegel, Chief Policy Analysis and Development Branch, Financing for Sustainable Development Office, UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, to deliver her opening remarks. Ms. Spiegel, please.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Alan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I'll add my good mornings to the discussion, to the very many friendly mornings that we heard earlier today. So really, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of UNDESA to today's workshop on integrated national financing frameworks in Africa. Our work at UNDESA is we lead the global work on thinking about the INFF methodology. And I just want to say that the methodology has been put together not just by us in DESA, but working closely with colleagues both in UNDP and the regional commissions, including ECA, but also very closely with the entire, what we call the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development, which includes all UN agencies, as well as the IMF and World Bank, as well as some of the other big international organizations. The OECD works with us, and as does the South Center. So it really includes the entire international system that gave inputs and thoughts into this methodology. I want to start by recognizing UNITAR, ECA, and UNDP for their collaborative work in organizing this workshop. This event is the third in a series of regional trainings on INFFs. So for those of you who don't know, I'll just say a few introductory words on INFF. So we'll have a much larger discussion this coming week, this coming days. INFFs are really a framework to find solutions to close financing gaps for supporting the SDGs and domestic priorities, to overcome constraints in financing and make the most of financing opportunities to support national development. First, I want to say they are not about replacing current policies. They're about bringing together existing policies, identifying the gaps and risks, finding the policy solutions, and very importantly, strengthening coherence across policies. So the idea is to come up with, to strengthen existing policies, to incorporate financing into the planning process, and to think about what are the equity issues, social, environmental, and economic concerns, to bring those into account and potential spillovers of policies. So apologies, I was just muted. The idea is to think through what are the trade-offs and spillovers and how do different policy sectors affect each other, which of course is one of the most challenging things to do in terms of financing issues. But the idea is really to strengthen and incorporate the financing piece into planning processes to help and ultimately raise additional financing for sustainable development. The methodology that I mentioned, it has 4 building blocks: assessment and diagnostics, a financing strategy, monitoring and review, and governance and coordination. And over the following 3 days, you will be introduced to the purpose, guiding principles, and processes for each of these 4 building blocks of the INF methodology. You'll also have a chance to learn from practical applications and real-world experiences, of countries who are in the process of implementing INFFs. I just want to add that INFFs have an important role to play both in the immediate response to the current crisis, as well as in building back, rebuilding better for the long term. So they shape the immediate response for COVID-19 by helping to shape the financing, the recovery strategies, including rapid assessments, scanning financing options, and using INF coordination mechanisms to bring together public and private actors around the COVID response. And second, they help to achieve the SDGs. The idea is to future-proof, what we call future-proofing the financial policy architecture, to move towards long-term oriented financing models. And integrated financing strategies play a role in enhancing financing policies. And I just want to add that COVID has really highlighted the importance of risk assessments in thinking about financing policies. And a big component of the INF process is the risk assessment process. So with that, I just want to add that the INF methodology provides a foundation for locally driven reform and action. Though I'm speaking to you from New York, and we'll have different presenters from our team in New York and other teams around the world. The INF is ultimately meant to be a local process. So we are just here to give thoughts and ideas, but really it's something for you to do and for it to be driven and the action to be locally driven. And so with that, I wish everyone a fruitful, insightful day, lively and stimulating discussions, and I will be back to just talk more tomorrow for one of the sessions tomorrow morning. So looking forward to seeing you all then, and back over to you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for bringing us up to speed, not only with what INFFs are in terms of being solutions to closing the financing gaps, but also how they've come about and the thinking behind them and the involvement of so many different actors. Dear participants, it is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Joseph Atamensa, the officer in charge of the Macroeconomics and Governance Division at the UN Economic Commission for Africa, to deliver his opening address. Mr. Joseph Atamensa, please.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you, Sherry, for your eloquent intervention. And good day to colleagues and participants to this important meeting. We are at a time, because of COVID, and therefore we are experiencing an unprecedented event, which we all know that it's hit us very hard, and therefore we've lost a lot of livelihoods, and we've also lost, unfortunately, loss of lives. While this challenge has hit every country, including those in Africa, and therefore has affected in terms of the macroeconomic stability issues. There's the need for us to find better ways to be able to readdress and bring us back, as Shari said, to help us probably build better. So we've been working, African countries have been working together, and the EC has been partnering along with organizations such as with the African Union and the United agencies around to see how best to address the pandemic. And I think it has not been easy, but I think each and every agency has been doing their part. Nevertheless, it is important that we have to look into how we can build back better using lessons that can be learned from other parts of the world, particularly in the areas of socioeconomic and financial repercussions of the pandemic. So what becomes important is, therefore, how do we mobilize resources? And therefore, domestic resource mobilization becomes very, very critical. And this has to be done in a way that it involves, is done in a prudent manner, which uses sound financial governance architecture, and so as to be able to address issues of future pandemics. How do we address it? So this is has become very important. So given this backdrop, one would understand that there is the need, therefore, to have an integrated national financing framework, or what you know as the INFF, whereby it will be in a position to address the challenges that we face, because financing will be integrated. And as we all know, the aim of the INFF, or the Integrated National Financing Framework, is basically to ensure that we have a very comprehensive framework for financing the sustainable development of each country. So the framework would have to support the planning processes, because every country would have its own national plans, and therefore the framework would have to be complementary with planning processes that exist in other countries, in every country. And therefore, it has to support the development priorities, the sustainable development priorities of each country. So it has to be, therefore, be holistic. And the idea of, which means that all sources of finance and their nature be matched to the priorities. So we have to have a system whereby we know the expenditure and we know the revenues coming in. This will ensure, therefore, that all expenditures for realizing national priorities within a coherent and sustainable financing strategy are adhered to as we build back better in our post-COVID period. So in the next 3 days, we are going to be getting, we are here for the next 3 days to understand the various aspects of the integrated national financing framework. And therefore, I would encourage each and every one of us to take opportunity of what our presenters and trainers will be telling us. I think someone's mic is open. Could you please put it off if you're not talking? I don't know who it is, but please, could you switch off your mic, please? So we are working with various countries and various UN agencies in order to achieve the integrated national financing framework, and particularly we are coordinated by the Shari's shop, which is the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, which have been leading the process here, and we are involved. The ECA is involved in terms of spearheading the program on the continent. And we've been doing this involving with national countries such as Burkina Faso and Zambia. We build on the work that UNDP has been doing, and UNDP has been providing a number of African countries and around the world by finding means and ways that resources are optimized and synergies are also optimized in that sense, so as to minimize any transaction costs. So under the Global UN Development Account project, at the national level, we have ongoing projects, activities, as I said earlier, in Burkina Faso and Zambia, anchored at the RC's office or the resident coordinators' offices within each country and supported by the relevant ECA sub-regional offices in Lusaka and in Niamey for Burkina Faso. So what does the project entail? It has two main objectives. The first objective is to help countries develop and implement the integrated national financing frameworks to strengthen the financing of the SDGs and mitigate the impact of the COVID. And the second objective is to increase knowledge exchange and peer learning among target countries, as well as strengthen coordination amongst the UN partners on financing issues. So against this workshop or the project is working on organizing training, which is one of what we are doing today, to introduce the INFF methodology in target countries, and also to develop guidance materials. It also seeks to provide technical assistance to support the implementation of the INFF in countries, and lastly, to develop a final compendium of experiences on INFF design, implementation, building on lessons learned at all levels that can be shared with contemporaries for posterity. In implementing these objectives, the projects will have four main areas to work with partners. One, it will measure and it will be measuring and combating the illicit financial flows. Two, it will design innovative sources of finance. And it would, thirdly, address the issue of mobilizing private capital and public-private partnerships for achieving the SDGs. And the fourth is to strengthening the SDGs based on reporting tools. This project has particular synergies with other work streams at the ECA. And it dovetails with activities that member states are also carrying out so as to achieve optimal outcomes from these engagements. At the ECA, we have what we call the Integrated Planning and Reporting Tool, which is being used to align the SDGs to the AU Agenda 2063 and National Development Plans in a way that it naturally complements the work on the INFF in facilitating and benchmarking the priorities that are needed in financing and utilizing the planning and monitoring tools to feed into the reporting of an implementation of the INF. ECA is working also with member countries in developing and refining an online inclusive African resource tracking system occasioned by better experiences of governing extra budgetary resources, such as the COVID Response Fund, and building on existing public financial management tools for officially sanctioned funds. Please, may I appeal to you, those who are not speaking to please turn off your microphones, please. Please turn off your microphones. So when it's finally launched, the INF will be a powerful accessory. When it's finally launched, the IPRIT will be a financial accessory resource to the INFF to determine effective accountability and inclusiveness. Our goal is to link all these resources and materials so that countries can have a sound economic governance structure to mobilize domestic resources from diversified sources and can implement a coherent and robust financing strategy for realizing national priorities. Without a doubt, I can say that the training course today will be a rewarding experience for all of us, all participants. And through this training, we should be able to create the knowledge sharing and learning space for African countries whereby they can share and support each other with their experiences and practices of integrated national financing frameworks. I count on your active participation to maximize the benefits and make this workshop a very productive one for each and everyone. Let me end by thanking each one of you for being present today, and we all look forward to a very productive workshop. Unfortunately, I would have to go for a bit and I would return to the workshop later. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph Atamensa, for underscoring the message that Shari shared with us, that we're not only looking to create new solutions, but also bring together existing policies and the different streams of work that you're doing to supplement what we intend to do here in the INFF. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now invite Ms. Ayodele Odusola, who is the Africa Finance Sector Hub Manager at UNDP, to deliver her opening remarks. Ms. Odusola, please.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, colleagues, and it's really a pleasure to be in your midst, and also to meet good friends that I've not met for quite a while now. And it's really a pleasure to have listened to Alan, Sherry, and Joseph on the various aspects of this particular workshop, particularly the objective of the workshop, the background to INFF, the components of INFF, as well as what each of the agencies are doing in terms of the integrated financial framework. I think this is really an opportune moment for all of us to really showcase the imperative of working together to achieve the objective of implementing the Sustainable Development Goal in a way and manner that will help us to achieve the target set. Permit me to just build on what Alan, Shari, and Joseph have already mentioned by focusing my message on 6 key areas emanating from some of the knowledge products we are currently working on financing Africa's development. My first key message is to indicate that COVID-19 has amplified the shocks and reversed the decade-long macroeconomic stability, including debt distress in Africa. This is, again, in line with what Joseph and Shari have already mentioned. The world experiences on COVID-19 since late 2019 shows that we are operating in an unprecedented time. Although some have argued that we are all facing the same storm, but we are certainly not on the same boat in terms of its long-term impact.
You are muted. Sorry. I think in a bit to mute the others, you are also muted. Please unmute yourself.
All right. I think somebody muted me, so that's fine. Yeah. Thank you. The main issue there is that the fact that we face this challenging situation with respect to the impact of COVID-19 makes Africa to be facing a turbulent combination of monetary, fiscal, climate, and epidemiological head swings. For instance, in Africa, in addition to over 7.5 million infected and over 190,000 deaths as of August 23, 2021, the pandemic is estimated to have an additional 43 million into extreme poverty on the continent, and also a loss of 20 million jobs, reduction in public revenue by about 5%, foreign direct investment by 16%, trade by 9%, and remittances by 5%. This really shows the level of debt vulnerability that many African countries are currently facing. And as of December 2020, about 50% of African countries are experiencing debt sustainability challenges. Despite a temporary dip in carbon emission, the climate crisis deepened, causing increased human displacement, migration, and famine. COVID-19 is compounding Africans' reliable revenue sources, such as oil and gas and other primary commodities, which are on the declining trend, and also the potential for higher interest rate in advanced countries may cause further capital outflows, leading to depreciation of local currencies and rising borrowing costs, which we consider to be a major macroeconomic issue that we need to look into, particularly given that debt burden is already growing under the weight of higher healthcare expenditure, lower tax revenue, and depleted foreign reserves. This requires innovative thinking to address, including co-creation and co-ownership of fiscal and development solutions, cutting across public and private sectors to work together to scale, to counteract the destabilizing force of the pandemic and build paths towards a resilient, sustainable Africa. This aligns with the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together, which we consider to be something that is extremely, very, very relevant in this particular context. This takes me to the second key message, which is about COVID-19 as a double-edged sword. COVID is both a tragedy and an accelerator, calling on African countries to minimize its challenges and maximize its opportunities. We should not be focusing too much on the associated challenges of COVID-19, like the reversal of progress on poverty, inequality, and climate change. But our strategic focus should be on the opportunities associated with COVID-19 by using it to leverage greater political engagement and regional cooperation on continents against the pandemic, fiscal challenges, including pro-cyclical fiscal system, and particularly galvanizing political actions and also regional cooperations on the institutionalization of the integrated national financing framework, which we consider to be very, very critical in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this takes me to the third key message. And it's about the fact that the tax mobilization efforts have been inadequate, partly due to domestic challenges and partly due to international practices. This includes limited human and institutional capacities, limited efforts to fight corruption, power asymmetry between African governments and multinational corporations, and international economic architectures like tax havens, taxing of high tech activities, and e-commerce, to mention a few. And also on the fourth key message, Africa exhibits fiscal paradox, where tax incidence is higher among impoverished informal sector and SMEs, while powerful individuals and multinational corporations enjoying fiscal and tax incentives, including tax holidays, under the guise of investment promotion and race to the bottom gain. This is a clarion call to fiscal justice in Africa, and particularly giving us the opportunity to really look at the various components of the integrated financing framework, which will get us to really look at what are the challenges and how do we move forward innovatively. The fifth challenge, the fifth key message is that the foregoing underpins the urgent need to align Africa's fiscal space with SDG, adopt a broader fiscal space approach, including traditional, blended, and innovative tools that provide a variety of options that help to promote macroeconomic stability and fiscal sustainability using the INFF initiative. The integrated financing framework, as already mentioned by both Sherry and Joseph, it's something that remains critical to achieve an integrated financing dashboard in Africa. The INFF takes the definition of fiscal space beyond the traditional scope to include public, private, and other sources of financing the SDG. INFF helps us to answer pertinent questions. What tools do we have at the national level to bring public and private actors together in defining an integrated financing strategy for the sake of the people, the economy, and the environment in our countries? Some examples may be more illuminating. It is reasonable to assume that government will borrow after exploring other options. But in practice, this may not be the case. In recent years, many governments found it easier to borrow without exploring any other revenue options or without assessing its sustainability impact. Moreover, in the INFF context of financing the SDG, we should use a broader definition of fiscal space, including both public and private sector resources, including innovative blended finance model. The alignment between the fiscal diamond approach and the SDG approach makes the adoption of the integrated national financing framework help shift the scope and dimension of fiscal space beyond traditional approaches, domestic resource mobilization, ODA, and borrowing. In this regard, the government can create fiscal space by raising taxes, securing outside grants, cutting lower priority expenditures, cutting redundant tax expenditures, including waivers and tax exceptions, borrowing resources from other public and private, mobilizing private sector investment through blended or crowd-in approach, public-private partnership through concession like build, own, and operate, build, own, operate, and transfer, among others, without compromising macroeconomic stability and fiscal sustainability. This approach helps us to broaden the fiscal space to countries, including traditional, non-traditional, innovative blended financing tools, and contributing to macro stability, as opposed to the current debt distress in many African countries. This is the centrality of INFF. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the final key message, a major lesson COVID-19 pandemic is teaching Africa is that the continent is suffering from paradox of capital. Africa needs substantial capital to achieve its developmental and fiduciary agenda, yet little capital are either legally invested outside the continent with lower interest rates or fleeced outside in the form of illicit financial flows and then come back in the form of an expensive loan, untargeted FDIs, volatile portfolio investment, and tied aid, to mention a few. Africa's capital that is supposed to be the driver of its economic transformation has become its albatross. COVID-19 teaches Africa that the imperative of tapping into pools of domestic capital that are either dormant or invested outside the continent to accelerate economic recovery and build a sustainable fiscal system. In the book, which we are currently working on, Africa's Fiscal Space in Post-COVID Era, Africa has at its disposal $1.1 trillion, about 29.1% of its GDP, either as a dormant or suboptimally utilized capital, cutting across insurance premium, sovereign wealth fund, pension funds, banks' unutilized reserves, and foreign reserves, excluding gold. Africa is typically an analogy of a penniless bullion owner starving to death while his bullion is being used by others. In this regard, distinguished ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, 35 African countries in the region, 35 countries in the region are using integrated national financing framework to shape financing for recovery for COVID pandemic and for investment in their sustainable development. Despite the disruption of the pandemic, tangible progress has been achieved in laying the foundations and tailoring Inff within different development contexts in the region. For instance, 26 countries are using development financing assessment, DFAs, to shape their Inff process. 12 countries in the region will develop a financing strategy for the first time, while 10 will strengthen existing financing strategies, broadening the scope to include private finance. 22 joint fund countries are carrying out reforms to strengthen budget monitoring through budget tagging or coding and performance monitoring in relation to national sustainable development priorities and the SDG. More than 70% of financing strategies are prioritizing climate change and energy transition. 2/3 prioritize gender inequality and social protection. Several pioneer countries are building capacity and strengthening governance of financing policies through innovations such as INFF dashboard and digital reforms, as well as whole of society dialogue platform. The success of this endeavor will depend on a great extent on the capacity of African countries and their partners to access the full set of options available in terms of private and financing space in an integrated manner, to consider new ways of mobilizing resources and prioritize financing reforms in line with countries' recovery and sustainable development priorities. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, and their colleagues, the need to promote effective alignment between SDGs and INFF and the adoption of blended fiscal space diamond as the instrument of operationalizing the alignment is critical to financing development in Africa. We should not be focusing on DRM, the domestic resource mobilization alone. We must also focus on prioritization and efficiency of expenditure, stop leakages through corruption, illicit financial flow, and productivity trap, leverage private sector financing of infrastructure, including public-private partnership, and triple bottom lines, where private sector is not focusing on economic profit alone, but also on social profit and environmental profits. When the foregoing has been examined, external financing exploration becomes something critical. ODA, concessional and non-concessional credits, both from multilateral and bilateral institutions. African countries must manage globalization to deepen its fiscal space and address technology challenges, negative spillover effects, and unfavorable trade and investment agreements. This will help us to really deepen the implementation of integrated national financing framework in Africa. I just want to use this opportunity to say sincere thanks to over 400 participants that have already registered before I started speaking, and also to really congratulate all the organizers, the Economic Commission for Africa, UNITA, UNDESA, and UNDP for an excellent work. And we strongly believe that your attention, your participation, your interaction during this particular session will provide the opportunity for us to take the implementation of integrated national financing framework to the next level in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odusola. I'm afraid I said Mr. Odusola before, but it was Mr. Odusola. Thank you very much for the great insights you have given us. You've traveled us through what so many countries are already doing in terms of INFF. And you have called out NAS to try and get this penniless bullion owner into a liquid bullion owner through these INFFs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite our last speaker in the opening segment, and that will be Mr. Eina Biogo, the Director of the Division for Satellite Analysis and Applied Research at UNITA. Mr. Biogo, please.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the UN Institute for Training and Research, I would really like to thank you for the invitation to be part of this event. We also are very pleased to be partnering with the United Nations sister agencies, the Department for Economic Affairs, DESA, the Economic Commission for Africa, and of course, UNDP. As you know, this workshop has been built on several successful workshops taking place in the past. One in North and Central Asia back in January 2001, and also more recently in Asia Pacific countries in March 2021. So this is thus the third workshop. This event will aim to generate a discussion on the mobilization of resources in support of efforts to build back better, and how countries can build on their practical experiences to address pressing regional and country level challenges, including debt sustainability, illicit financial flows, formulation of budgets that support development, economic governance, and leapfrogging opportunities of the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. The workshop has been designed primarily for the integrated national financing framework, focal points, and practitioners from African countries, including those working at ministries of finance, planning, and economic development, in addition to other ministries that may be actively involved in the integrated national financing framework process, with a strong focus on locally driven action. And I also look forward to this event to see how it can be using more technologies in terms of institutional planning, in terms of financial planning, based on facts-based information. I would also like to thank my colleague Elena Proden and her team at UNITAR for their contributions towards this workshop. I know that we're a bit scarce for time here, so I'm going to keep it short, but I do look forward to learn how the outcomes of the workshop will and I really look forward to see how this can be used for a successful event. From my side, I would looking forward, as I said, to see how technologies can be used, learn from other good practitioners out in the field on how we can better use the existing experiences and the existing knowledge in order to build back better. So with this, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biog, for those insightful remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the opening session. And with this, allow me to hand over to my colleague, Elena Proden, to take over as the session moderator for the next session. Elena, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alan. So we are very pleased now to kick off this training workshop with the first session that is expected to set the stage for the rest of the 3 days. We will start with 2 presentations. that will provide insights into the overall concept and the purpose of the integrated national financing frameworks as a key instrument for ensuring that national development strategies, recovery plans, and SDGs can be implemented at the country level. The presentations will also provide an overview of the related activities planned and carried out under a dedicated development account project, and with a specific focus, of course, on the African region. And the presentations will provide a snapshot of the current INFF work in the region. We will then briefly open the floor for questions and answers. And given that we are behind the schedule, we would like to encourage you to please feel free, send your questions, if any, through the chat while presenters are speaking, so that we could collect them a bit in advance and then get things moving faster. And finally, we will conclude with a pre-workshop assessment, the information about which will be provided in due course. Let me remind you also that there is interpretation available in 3 other languages: French, Portuguese, and Arabic. And we've seen your comments also about the French, the volume of the French interpretation. So we are trying also to bring the attention of the interpreters to solve this. And let me now introduce the first 2 speakers who will make a joint presentation. Ms. Natalia Aristizabal Mora, Interregional Advisor on Financing for Sustainable Development from the Financing for Sustainable Development Office at UNDESA, and Ms. Farzana Sharmi, Economic Affairs Officer from the Economic Governance and Public Finance Section, Macroeconomics and Governance Division of the ECA. They will talk about the integrated national financing frameworks and the development account tranche 13 project in Africa. So Natalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elena, and good afternoon, good morning to all of you. I don't know, I think the Secretariat will share the presentation. And well, while the presentation, yeah, there it is. I don't, okay. Great. So it's a pleasure to be here. And as Elena was saying, well, this first presentation is, well, mainly about the overview of INFFs, of Integrated National Financing Frameworks. And we also intend to give you an overview of the activities we are doing with DESA and ECA in collaboration with UNDP in Africa under a development account project that is being implemented. So, well, without further ado, let's go to the overview on INFF. So next slide, please. So, well, what are INFF in general? Well, Shari and the other speakers at their opening remarks already said this, but let me repeat it again. It's an approach, is a framework for unlocking financing for sustainable development and the SDGs, and where are those well, development or sustainable development priorities set on usually in national development plan documents or other planning documents issued by countries. So the countries are the ones who decide what are the priorities in terms of development, what they want to reach first in terms of development. And of course, they align those with the SDGs and the international agenda, and further, well, further down in the workshop, we are going to see, well, a presentation on IPRT's integrated and reporting toolkit, the integrated and reporting toolkit developed by ECA in order to link national development plans to that international agenda on sustainable development. But what we want, or what INFFs are intended to do, is, well, to unlock the financing for those priorities countries set in, well, at the national level. How, well, INFFs are intended to do that? Well, first, by taking into account the full range of financing resources that are available: public, private, international, domestic, aid and cooperation resources, etc. By, well, they also intend to do that by, well, identifying where are the gaps for financing those priorities that were identified by countries, and by trying to close or to come up with the policies to close those gaps, and also by identifying where are the incoherences and to try to overcome those incoherences. So, for instance, if we want to deal with climate change issues and to put a price on carbon emissions, then if we at the same time are providing for fossil fuel subsidies, well, there is an incoherence there. So INFFs, by identifying those, try to or seek to overcome those incoherences. And they also seek to do that by exploiting opportunities where there are good opportunities for getting more resources in order to finance those priorities. So in the case of developing countries, which who have a lot of natural resources, well, then come new financing instruments like green financing, blue financing, etc. Very important, INFFs build on existing policies and institutional arrangements. Sometimes we hear that INFFs are a new tool, and well, that gives the impression that they are something new that has to be designed and implemented from scratch, when it is not. It is actually, as explained before, is an approach, is a framework that builds on those existing institutional arrangements. What are your priorities set in the National Development Plan? Well, those are your policies. What are the arrangements within the country to implement the development agenda? Those institutional arrangements and those policies, well, INFFs seek to build on those. And very important, again, is country-owned and it's country-led. It's not something that is imposed by international organizations or IFIs. It's something that the country is, well, the intention is to help the country to move forward with its own agenda. Yes, next slide. Thank you. Well, so how can INFFs help governments? And here is we like to talk about the value added of this integrated approach. So by having or by adopting this integrated approach, countries can well think in long term, in a long term, and develop or finance their long-term priorities. We usually in countries, well, we have well, this problem of thinking in short term or medium term, but sustainable development, well, is actually about long term or achieving long term goals. So having an integrated approach allows us to, well, to reach those long-term priorities. It also allows us to mobilize additional financing support. And as it was mentioned in the opening remarks, that is particular or has become particularly important because of COVID-19. But before COVID-19, we were already behind in achieving those development priorities. So by adopting this integrated approach, identifying where are the gaps, where are the incoherences, where are the opportunities, we are able to mobilize even more resources. Well, they help to manage a complex financing landscape. Well, a landscape where you have ODA, you have, well, to think also about FDI. You also need to think about mobilizing more resources domestically. To overcome silos, and they help also to overcome silos and strengthen coherence of financing policies. In countries we are used to, well, to think and to work separately. So the Minister of Finance works sometimes, or very often separately from the Ministry of Planning and from the Minister of Environmental. So having an integrated approach allows, well, to bring all the stakeholders, all the important stakeholders together to come up with the strategy for financing these long-term priorities. They help also to match different types of financing to their most appropriate use. So we may want to or think that given tax incentives to particular well, activities to attract private financing to particular activities is a good thing to do. It's a perhaps it's a good thing to do when we are talking about climate change and environmental issues, but not such a good idea when we are talking about health issues, so financing health and social protection. So these kind of things are easy to, or more easy to spot when we have an integrated approach. And finally, they also, well, help streamlining a wide variety of tools and instruments available to support national action. So, well, you know these instruments and these tools. There are tools for mobilizing more domestic resources. So, well, MTRS is the platform for tax collaboration, has issued guidance to implement MTRSs and to therefore come up with tax reforms that are medium or serve medium and long-term purposes. Those tools don't oppose to INFFs. They are integrated to INFFs. They can be part of this integrated approach. And it is the same with IPRTs, the tools or the tool we are going to well, look at in the next session. So, well, talking about having an integrated approach is easier than it is to implement it. So that's where the global guidance comes in. And Shari already mentioned it, the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development decided to come up with this guidance, global guidance, to help countries well, designing and implementing this integrated approach, these INFFs. And they, well, it did it by well, by issuing guidance on 4 building blocks. We know that those building blocks work together, and each one feed into the other one. But for the purposes of giving or a purpose, a methodological purpose, we issued the guidance by different building blocks. And you will see this wheel throughout the workshop in many, many presentations, because it intends to show that each one of the building blocks fits into the other one. And you will see other charts with arrows as well. Here you have when the guidance was issued and where you can find that guidance in that website in the bottom of the slide. So next slide, please. Well, here you have, but I'm not going to explain this in detail because we don't have enough time, and you will see these in more detail throughout the workshop. But here is in a nutshell what each of the building blocks is about. So next slide, please. Well, and finally, before going to the general aspects of the DA project, we are implementing, in different regions, including Africa. I wanted to say something about the inception phase, because, if you remember in the last slide, there was, in a nutshell, what each of the building blocks of the general guidance is about. And there is, a short description of a phase that is not described as a building block, but as an inception phase. It's an initial phase. And we don't have a session specifically for the inception phase. Here, there are countries that are already working on their INFFs, so they already went through that inception phase, and that's the reason why we are not dedicating a full session to that. But I wanted to say some words about that phase. That phase is the starting point, or is intended to be the starting point for the INFF, where countries should try to come up or to map the existing, or to gather better the information needed to start an INFF, to map the existing financing policies and frameworks, and assess the required data for then continue the process. Many countries have done that using, and you already, many of you are already familiar with this tool, and you already heard Mr. Odusola from UNDP talking about this particular tool. So many countries have used what UNDP has developed and called a development finance assessment, to do this scoping exercise, to gather this information that would allow them then to move on in the process of the INFF. This inception phase also intends to identify the institutional arrangements or the stakeholders that should be involved in the INFF process, and that will depend on the type of INFF a country wants to implement. So many countries use INFF to come up with a financing strategy for their entire priorities, development priorities, but some others use them to, well, finance or to come up with a strategy to finance, well, more targeted priorities like environmental priorities. So depending on that, well, the stakeholders to be involved will be different depending on the actual institutional arrangements or the special conditions of each country. Then the stakeholders will differ. So you may have the central banks. You will for sure have the Ministry of Finance involved, the Ministry of Planning involved, but depending again on the type of INFF and depending again on your particular circumstances, you will need to add some other stakeholders or for the purposes of your INFF. And afterwards, after gathering this information and after knowing who needs to be involved, then, well, the result of that can be a roadmap to start working on the other building blocks or on the other aspects that are addressed by those building blocks. Well, I wanted to say those few words about the inception phase because we are not going to come back to that in a particular session. And finally, on the DA project that we are now implementing in different regions. As Shari mentioned, there's a main role in when it comes to INFFs has been to develop or to lead the development of that global guidance, of that global methodology. But we recently started to do some work at the country and the regional level on INFFs to support some work on at the country and regional level through this DA project, which is a project that involved 10 countries in 5 different regions. One of them is Africa, and we work in those regions with the regional commissions and with UNCTAD in close coordination with UNDP and the UN resident offices. As it was mentioned before, by Mr. Joseph Atamenza, the objectives, the main objectives of the DA project are to help countries develop and implement their INFFs and to increase knowledge exchange and peer learning among target countries. And this workshop is one of the activities that fits or intends to develop those objectives. And with that, I will pass the floor to my colleague Farzana from ECA. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Colleagues, can you hear me? Natalia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues, and a warm welcome to my segment of the presentation. As Natalia has excellently presented the brief overview of Integrated National Financing Framework, INFF, and some of the stylized facts of the Development Account Project overall. In the next couple of minutes, I will be sharing some information about the Development Account Project from the ECA perspectives. ECA is one of the 5 regional commissions that are implementing the project at the continental level. Our mandate and comparative strengths in the issues of African development are contributing to the project implementation. For instance, we have work ongoing in areas like macroeconomic policy and economic governance, including works on domestic resource mobilization, financing for development and implementation of SDGs and its monitoring processes. We are supporting member states in their voluntary national reviews for SDGs, innovative finance and public-private partnerships, and building statistical capacities in monitoring SDGs. We have ongoing works activities in all 4 thematic areas that are part and parcel of the implementation of INFF activities. While implementing the project activities, we are forging partnership with other partners. In terms of areas where we are partnering, we can particularly mention 4 areas that Joseph also mentioned at the opening speech. Allow me to reiterate. So we are working in measuring and combating illicit financial flows, designing innovative sources of finance, mobilizing private capital and public-private partnerships for achieving the SDGs, and finally strengthening SDG-based reporting tools. We have ongoing development account projects or regular activities or extra budgetary activities targeted for these areas where we are working with our partner organizations. As you might recall from the presentation of Natalia, the development account project has mainly 2 components. The first components are mainly targeted for the target countries or the pilot countries. As she mentioned, we have 10 target countries under this project, 2 for the African continent. So we are supporting the 2 target countries, which are Burkina Faso and Zambia, in their country-specific INFF implementation. That entails supporting the countries in areas like domestic resource mobilization, public-private partnership, innovative financing sources, among others. And in terms of supporting those objectives, we are working with the target countries in the form of capacity building workshop, knowledge products like development of handbooks, resource materials, so that they can have the INFF implemented, targeted for that country context. While that is the granular level of national activities, for regional activities, our target countries are all 54 member states of our African continent. And for regional activities, our main modality is to share knowledge, experience, and lessons learned so that countries can benefit from peer learning issues. Sharing a bit more about the regional activities, UNECA will be setting up a digital network or digital community of practice for African countries that are setting up and operationalizing the INFF. This will involve creating a network of INFF focal points at the relevant ministries. It can be Ministry of Finance or other relevant ministries, as Natalia mentioned. And the main purpose will be to promote cross-sharing of experiences in Africa on the INFF process. And we will also be facilitating sharing of experiences in terms of country responses for the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. Eventually, we are planning to integrate this digital network into the global knowledge platform on INFFs. Regarding specific activities, we are also planning to organize a webinar for the INFF focal points at the relevant ministries, but we will be incorporating private sector and civil society partners, mainly to stimulate discussions on financing SDGs for Africa. Next year, we are planning to also organize a capacity building workshop on INFF in Africa. There, we are planning to bring all the key stakeholders who are involved in the process. We will be mainly focusing on the knowledge sharing and sharing of case studies, not only to ensure peer learning, but most likely to also encourage countries to make them enthusiastic about INFF implementation at the country level. These are some of the development account activities that Joseph also shared, but allow me also to share 2 particular activities that are contributing to the INFF process. One is Integrated Planning and Reporting Toolkit, and the other one is Africa Resource Tracking System, or ARTS. So both are online platform which are supporting countries in mainly in ensuring accountability, monitoring, and transparency. So IPRT is the online platform that will be supporting countries in terms of mapping the degree of overlap or synergy between their national priorities or plans vis-a-vis global commitments like SDG 2030 and Agenda 2063 of African Union. I'll not be going much into details because we already have a dedicated session on IPRT later today. So at the end of the session, we will be in a better position to know what is what. In the interest of time, I will just move to the Africa Resource Tracking System. This is also an online platform. Here we are tracking the public funds uses from the sources to intermediaries to the end beneficiaries. The main rationale for this platform was to ensure public resources management, transparency and accountability. So through this platform, we will be able to track what is the sources of the public funds, how it is allocated and distributed, and how it is reaching to the end beneficiaries. A closer look into these two online platforms reveals that they have this component of monitoring and review. For IPRT, for instance, it is showing the degree of synergy so the country can also better gauge what is the level of overlap between national priorities and plans vis-a-vis global commitments, so that perhaps they can rethink about the priorities and have the necessary financial arrangement in place for attaining those objectives. While for Africa Resource Tracking Framework, we are also mapping the public resources uses so that we can identify the loopholes of the bottlenecks to then solve those issues. So this component of monitoring and review are mainly supporting increased accountability and having the synergy from the ongoing activities. And eventually we are hoping that that will ensure an increased level of economic governance in the continent. So these two online platforms are contributing to the INFF implementation through all 4 building blocks, but particularly to building blocks 3 and building blocks 4, which is review and monitoring and the accountability and economic and governance. While the modalities of engagement and the linkage is still work in progress, but we are working towards attaining that based on our principle of ensuring maximum synergy from the ongoing works. And our biggest strength is the similarities and the overlap and potential synergies from the conceptual similarity of INFF and these two ongoing activities. We are working with our regional partners and we are working with our valuable member states so that ultimately we can ensure Agenda 2030 and African Agenda 2063 for a prosperous Africa. With that, I stop here. Thank you so much for your attention. I welcome any questions, but I guess after the end of the presentation, next presentation. So with that, thank you so much once again, and I hand over to Elena. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our both speakers, Natalia and Farzana. We will now move to the second presentation that we will have during this session. And then we will take the questions from the audience after that. So let me now announce our next speaker. It's Miss Oria Goni, SDG Financing Advisor from Africa Finance Sector Hub. Oria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elena. And thanks very much to Natalia and Farzana for introducing the bigger picture. What I will be sharing with you today is the ongoing work on INFF in the continent. As you know, this is not new to many of us, but we thought it would be useful to do a recap training to bring all of us together. With the support of UNDESA and the Economic Commission for Africa and the colleagues from UNITAR. In UNDP, we're working programmatically to support the countries and the governments that are here present today in making this theoretical INFF work, which is the implementation of the recommendations of the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. So we are making this INFF and this Addis Ababa Action Agenda happen. And definitely not building from scratch, but trying to integrate the different angles of what is happening. What you can see in this first slide is the big picture of all the countries that are currently implementing INFF. And of course, the ones that are still not being colored are the one, certain countries are now in the phase of preliminary discussions. But we see that there is clearly a high number of countries that are well, committed and undertaken and rolling out what the INFF ambition is. I say again the INFF ambition because many of us are trying to build the concept, and we must say there are certain countries that have gone, you know, that are taking the lead, but this is a process where we are all learning and where we are all listening and trying to integrate and complement the different work that we are all well, putting in place, all with the ambition of bringing together public and private actors behind the SDGs, and also the ambition of aligning the planning priorities with the financing opportunities and possibilities. So let me start by what Natalia already presented, which is you know, the starting point, the inception phase. I wanted to give you a picture of well, where we are, and this is just numbers, of course, but it also gives you a good picture that you know, we're not starting from scratch, and you are not starting from scratch. Fantastic. I have a bee in my room at the moment as I speak, so sorry to say. We have a few countries that decided to work with this tool that as UNDP we have put at the services of the ministries of finance or ministries of planning and economy in different countries, which is the development finance assessments. And we're happy to say that so far 16 countries have completed their development finance assessments that are giving a picture on you know, where do we need to start? What is the anchor where this INFF process needs to focus thematically, but also in terms of the, you know, architectural and the key reforms that need to happen. And as Natalia mentioned, the outcome of a development finance assessment or the outcome of what it is, the inception phase, is you know, to have an INFF roadmap. And at the moment, as we were saying, we have 16 INFF roadmap that have happened. If I may kindly ask you to mute your microphones, please. Thank you very much. So just also to give a clearer picture of what an INFF roadmap is and what the scope of an INFF roadmap is. On the one hand, is trying to bring a holistic and integrated approach across public finance, meaning linking budgeting, but also integrating revenue, linking public debt, public entities, related policies, and development cooperation, as well as South-South cooperation. So it's about integrating and linking all these policies that govern public finance as such, but also trying to generate, on the right-hand side column, you see that integrated approach of those public policies that govern private finance. So this is, you know, getting into promoting private participation in public investments, you know, creating and adapting the private sector policies for the SDGs. So building markets that work for the SDGs, but also engaging in non-commercial finance, which is, you know, trying to align the policies and that govern, you know, faith-based organizations, foundations, and NGOs as a philanthropic organizations, but also bringing diaspora and remittances. Colleagues, if I may ask you to mute your microphones, thank you very much. So once we get into the financing strategies, as Natalia was saying, we will get, and all those building blocks are interrelated, but we want to just project here from an INFF survey that we conducted with the support of the colleagues of the SDG Fund earlier in the year. The SDG Fund, allow me just to just comment on this. The SDG Fund is currently the funding structure that is facilitating it, and it's enabling the implementation of the SDG financing or the INFF interventions at country level. So what we are doing together with the bigger UN family, but also the broader set of partners, including the European Union, but also in some cases the German cooperation too, and the other partners, we're trying to come up with a comprehensive and holistic financing strategy that, of course, we're calling SDG financing strategies, but it needs to be adapted to each country context. This is, and what we are trying to promote is, that concept of a new financing strategy that, looks into that long and medium-term response. And here is, of course, as the INFF initiative was launched in 2019, and then COVID happened. So there is, of course, that very strong need to integrate that short-term, recovery response vision, but also that longer and medium-term vision into that financing strategy. So building forward better from that perspective, but also thinking of low-hanging fruit that can provide a quick response to the current emergencies. So and a few number of countries are looking into setting up a new financing strategies, but others have a current financing strategy that might be the resource mobilization strategy of the National Development Plan. And some others are trying to bring together an existing investment strategy and look into specific sectors. So here you have, the short or the medium-term vision of, how countries are already envisioning how those holistic financing strategies will be. And here also, I think this is interesting to see because a few countries are already looking into specific thematic areas that those financing strategies will look into. And let me, quickly highlight specific sectors such as gender equality, the climate and energy, so that agenda about, turning from the brown to the green recovery, but also these important pillars of the social protection, health, and education. In the other circle or that wheel that you see in the right hand side of the slide, you can see the different sectors from, specific work on tax and revenue, specific work on, through the annual public budget, on specific budgeting, work on public entities, development cooperation, public-private partnerships, targeted work on remittances or promoting diaspora investment, looking into the whole finance and, digital finance, looking into, creating that financial and developing that financial sectors, getting into the private sector of, domestic private sector development, access to finance and SME financing, and then getting into foreign direct investment, fintech, philanthropic funding, etc. So as you can see, the reforms that are already being envisioned through what we can learn and distill from those initial roadmaps, INFF roadmaps, and the specific work that we can extract from this INFF survey that I mentioned earlier, is telling us a number of reforms that are touching from public finance, but also private finance. you can see here, but we will hear from themselves tomorrow in the session on the building block 2 on the financing strategies. You can hear, you can see the examples of some countries that are already taking the lead on the face of getting into a holistic financing strategy, which is the case of Tanzania, the case of Ghana, which is, well, Tanzania that is looking into, linking the whole investment strategy, but Ghana that is getting into a bottom-up approach, district level recovery strategies. Nigeria that is setting up a, comprehensive federal to state level architecture and specific reforms touching upon all those different sections that I mentioned. And Namibia that is also looking into integrating the digital finance related work, but also looking into linking the National Determined Contributions Agenda, which is the climate promise agenda and its financing framework with the INFF work. So, this is to give us an idea and an initial visual of what will be shared in the sessions tomorrow, but I thought it would be good to give you a flavor of what will come, so I can ensure you all will be with us tomorrow. Here you have a slide that is showing how, as part of that inception, as Natalia was saying, there is, some countries are discussing setting up those oversight committees. It is very important to underline that most of these countries are looking into not creating an additional structure, but really making sure that that committee, that oversight committee of this INFF process is anchored into an existing committee. So we don't create parallel systems, but that we really get into the ongoing reforms of what you are implementing, your calendar, if I may say, of your calendar of activities and reforms that you are undertaking. As you can see here, we see that, of course, because we are talking about INFF, there is, those central ministries that are being the chairs of that oversight committee are either the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Planning or Ministry of Economy. But in that bigger picture, then you have, the central banks, the commercial banks, you have investment agencies coming together, and you do have also committees that might represent the civil society and the development partners, so that we ensure that perspective of that the whole of society approach, which is also what Farzana was also referring to, that aspect of, how do we demystify finance? How do we bring it to the bigger society? How do we create financing dialogue mechanisms so that such principles of transparency, accountability are further promoted? So here you have some examples of different initiatives that some countries are undertaking. You have a Cameroon that has done this interesting mapping on existing participatory platforms. Might be related to ongoing processes on VNR. In other cases, might be related to the greening and the climate financing discussions. From national level to subnational level. Sierra Leone will be sharing experiences and on how they are also getting even into a training on INFF and its concept at local level. And how they are really ensuring that this discussion to go beyond funding and to get into that perspective of financing of their local development priorities. So all this from a pure dialogue and trying to really make sure that that information and that dialogue is shared and created among the different stakeholders. Nigeria, as I was saying, also is setting up this SDG financing architecture, and DRC. I thought it will be also very interesting to share this specific initiative on how they have. It will happen shortly. and how they have planned a series of a whole week of dialogue that is bringing together all the stakeholders that could be implied in this whole INFF work. And this is going to be the kickoff meeting, the kickoff event of the INFF agenda in the DRC. Here you have the bigger picture of the ongoing partnerships. We do have, a very extensive collaboration with the UN system as a whole, but also we do have a very strong collaboration with other key actors such as the EU, IMF, World Bank, GIZ, and others. A crucial fact here is, as I was saying at the beginning, there's no country that has really established a pure INFF where we can say, okay, we can, somehow replicate this. No, each country needs to tailor the INFF process in its own context. And we know that each country have their different perspective. But at the same time, we know that we can benefit a lot from what other countries, from what our peers are doing. And this is what we're trying to promote when we connect even, our UNDP colleagues, but also now getting into the ambition of connecting this INFF system of focal points, as Farzana was presenting. How can we, bring all of you together more regularly through, these type of platforms, so that we can share and hear from each other, and we can, share our pains, share about and hear about the do's and the don'ts, in this process. So here, just a few recap. But as Ayodele Odusola mentioned before, we have currently, of course, government ownership is very strong and very high, normally led by ministries of finance in this whole INFF process. And this is a message that we want to transmit. We are here to support you, implement this initiative, but we need to be under your leadership. We have currently 26 countries where we are supporting as UNDP through the development finance assessments. In some cases, as the case of Burkina, through that DEA project, we are collaborating with ECA in setting up and developing that, setting up the process to roll out the development finance assessment that will lead to that INFF roadmap. Then you have 12 countries that are currently already developing that financing strategy. And I think it's very interesting, again, to underline that more than 70% of those financing strategies are prioritizing the climate change and energy transition, that 2/3 are prioritizing gender equality and social protection. I'm going to stop there. You see a few other recaps, but I'm not going to read into them. This is the INFF knowledge platform. This is the link that I have shared to all of you. This is where, together with UNDESA and the EU, we are, we have all the information that we are compiling from you. So this is supposed to be the platform where we can bring together all that information, and that you can have access to that methodology that DESA has led into the development of those theoretical building blocks and methodological building blocks, and the experiences from each country can be found there. So I wanted to end by saying, together we can achieve more. Thank you all, and happy to respond to any question. Over to you, Elena.
Thank you very, very much, Yuria, for your excellent presentation. We've received a number of questions. First of all, I would like to mention that the recurrent question was about PowerPoint presentations. They will be shared with the participants, and we will announce how exactly. There was a question about the French version of the presentation. That's something that is not available at the moment. We will look into the possibility of having this in French. And if this is possible, you will receive them in French as well. Now, there was one question that was related to the examples and TORs of the INFF in general. And I guess you may have received your answer in a way that throughout these 3 days, actually, we will be looking into the examples and also the methodology, going through the 4 building blocks of the INFF throughout these 3 working days, and you will get more insights into the process. And then there were a number of more specific questions, which I'm going to list very quickly. And then I will invite our 3 presenters to pick the ones they think they would be best positioned to answer. So there were several questions on the DA account pilot countries, and the answers were provided on the list of countries and the title of the project in the chat. There was one question on the criteria, how exactly those countries were selected, and I guess Natalia could probably answer that question quickly. Then there was one clarification question on the difference between the African resource tracking system discussed by Farzana and the integrated financing dashboard. So perhaps also Farzana and Aurea could address this question. And there was a question on illicit financial flows and whether assisting governments in this area is free of politics. And also perhaps Natalia, Farzana, or Aurea, whoever would like to address this question, please feel free to do so. And the final question was related to the experience for Aurea specifically of the countries, the INFF experience in the countries emerging from the conflict or in conflict. What are the specific challenges? Let me just remind our speakers that we are really behind the schedule. So if you could keep your answers relatively short, and what I think we agreed, we will promise to participants that those questions that we could not address during the session today, we will collect them and we will also address them in writing, perhaps maybe providing more details for some of the questions. So I will start with Natalia, as she was the first presenter. Natalia, please feel free to choose the questions that you think you should answer.
Thank you, Elena. Well, I will address first the question on the criteria to choose the DA project countries. As I put in the chat, the countries that were or are targeted by the DA project. Well, the criteria were basically we had to pick 2 countries per region. We also picked those countries that had already expressed some interest on doing or on adopting this approach. And we picked different levels of development of the INFFs in all of those countries, because one of the purposes of the project is precisely to have this peer sharing experience. And we thought that, well, having those, that mixture of countries with different levels of development and different levels of development of the INFF would allow us to, to collect a broader range of experiences. So those are the criteria, and I didn't get quite well the question on illicit financial flows, so perhaps I will leave to others that one. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Natalia. Then Farzana, perhaps as you were the second speaker, please, it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elena. I will pick the one which was about the difference between IPRT and ARTS, Africa Resource Tracking Framework. So we will be able to know in more details about IPRT just the next session. But briefly, IPRT is the online platform which will be showing the degree of overlap or the synergies between national priorities, national plans, vis-a-vis Agenda 2030 or Sustainable Development Goals, or the African Union Agenda 2063. So this is This will show the national plans, how it is matching with the global commitments. Africa Resource Tracking Framework, on the other hand, are mainly targeting the public resources use. So if I take an example, just for the sake of explaining, suppose we develop the platform on the basis of tracking COVID-19 stimulus packages in Kenya. So if we take an example of how much the government is spending in terms of financial stimulus packages targeted for SMEs. So through this platform, a country will be able to know, okay, this much thousands of dollars were allocated for, say, 100, 200 SMEs. Then the platform will show from the sources of that fund how it is allocated and distributed, and whether or not it has reached to the ending beneficiaries, which are the SMEs. And in that process, it will also be able to tell us about the leakages, corruption, bottlenecks, which can then the country can address, so that that many dollar eventually reach that 100, 200 SMEs as planned. So in a very simplified manner, if we try to explain the rationale or the modalities of this platform, it will help us track that public resources management. Elena, if you can please repeat the illicit financial flows one. I also missed that.
Whether assisting governments in this area is free of politics.
In INFF or in IFF?
The question was IFF, so I think we can maybe ask the participant who asked this question just to confirm that we are talking about IFFs and not INFFs.
So while we are waiting for the explanation, allow me to briefly share about our other development account project on illicit financial flows, or IFF. We have a lot of synergies, and it's one of our main areas where we are working to support the countries in estimating and measuring IFF, or illicit financial flows. That has a lot of bearing for the INFF implementation as well. Now, one particular clarification about this part is like our DA project on IFF is focusing purely on statistical measurement. We are not going into the political sphere. We want to see the methodology that was developed globally, whether that is robust enough when the countries are estimating their IFFs at the, based on the country priorities and context, how robust is that estimate, so that we can finalize the global methodology. So our project is focusing purely educational purposes or statistical purposes. Yeah, over to you, Elena.
Thank you very much. So we are trying to see Wakeu Abate Mitiko. The question was from you. So I guess if you can confirm via the chat, and then we can pick up this question later. And now I will pass the floor to Oria.
Thank you, Lena. So if I may respond to the specific question, and I see just another one now that I think I can take on what are the linkage between the Africa Research Tracking Finance and these financing dashboards. There is, we are starting to implement this initiative that will will be linked to the building block 3 on monitoring and review, to see how we can make use of existing finance tracking systems, and how do we bringing them all together into what we are calling the financing dashboards, so that we can get that bigger picture of how much and how many resources we have. And we will hear maybe from the interventions from the different countries on what systems they have. There are systems that have to do with the tracking on, pure PFM systems, but also some systems that are tracking how much, foreign direct investment is coming in. There are certain central banks that are directly tracking, what is coming in through remittances, but also, clearly, there was a few years ago, because of that aid effectiveness and development effectiveness agenda that was called later on, there were this system to track what ODA, what development, official development assistance was coming through the development partners. And this idea is just to have a better idea of, how much do we have, so that we can properly spend and we can properly align it with, the short, medium, and longer term development priorities. So this is the process of the financing dashboards. We are already having those initial discussions to roll this out, and the intervention from Namibia, I hope, will refer to it in Namibia and Rwanda and in Egypt. And we are collaborating with the German cooperation to conduct this feasibility study. And if I may respond to another question that I've seen on, who can be part of this INFF oversight committee and who can be chair. So this is more to the governments to decide about the membership. But as I was saying, normally what we are trying to promote is to ensure that we build on an existing committee or an existing system, and making sure that we bring that whole of society into it. So normally it's either the Ministry of Planning and Finance or Prime Minister's Office or Ministry of Economy or Ministry of Budget, because obviously each country has its own structures. But then we are also trying to see how we bring those thematic ministries, such as energy, but education, infrastructure, those ministries that, might boost those thematic areas that we were referring when we were talking about those SDG financing strategies. So I hope I responded to that question, and thanks very much. Over to you, Elena.
So thank you very much to all presenters. We received a lot of new questions, very interesting questions related to, for example, mainstream inclusion and gender equality in the INFF process, whether there are examples of countries who have completed fully the INFF cycle, whether there were countries who didn't embrace and what were the challenges, also about countries who started developing financing strategies before the INFF, how they should go about that. Questions related to illicit financial flows and what kind of mechanisms could be put in place in the countries to combat them. There were questions also on the IPRT, which will be discussed in the next session, and the inclusion of NCD, nationally determined contributions there, etc. So what we will be doing, we will collect the questions, all the questions, and the answers will be provided in writing. We will inform you via which channel, how exactly it will be done. But we will try to address all these valuable questions. And I also hope that some of those questions can also be addressed during the subsequent sessions. So please don't hesitate to ask them when it's relevant. And now, before we fully conclude the session, we would like to invite you to do a small pre-workshop assessment before we go into the actual training part. This assessment will consist of 10 questions, what we call objective assessment questions. I would like to invite you all to look into the chat box right now. You can see that the assessment is available in 2 languages, in English and French. Please pick the one you are most comfortable with and click on the link and try to answer these questions. The purpose of the assessment is for us as the organizers of the training activity to be able to measure how effectively the activity was organized. You will be asked similar questions on day 3 at the end of the training. And we will compare basically the results to see if the training had really helped to improve knowledge in some of the areas that we cover through this training activity. Please don't hesitate to send your questions if you have any with regards to this assessment. And now I invite you to complete it. There are only 10 questions, so I hope 5 minutes will be sufficient.
Elena, there is a hand from Wesley. I don't know whether about the questionnaire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please, Wesley, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I got lost. I cannot access the questions. Where are the questions?
So once you clicked on the link, you will get to the survey. You first you are invited to enter your information, and then when you click on next, you will be taken to the questions. Do you see the links in the chat box? SurveyMonkey. Can you try to click on one of them? In case SurveyMonkey doesn't work for some of you, my colleague Madina has also shared the links, alternative links on Google Form. I think we hope that most of you managed to go through most of the questions. We will now need to move to the next session. And I will pass the floor to Alan for the moderation.
Thank you, Elena, for this very interesting session. I think, judging from the chat box, I, together with the participants, have been glued to the presentations. The feedback is good, and I've learned a lot myself. So I hope that we carry the same eagerness into the next session. Some of the questions that have been asked are certainly questions that are going to be answered over the next 2 days, even this afternoon. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite Professor Tadele Ferede to talk to us about the integrated planning and reporting tool from the ECA. Professor Tadele.
Thank you very much, Alan. Let me try to open on my. Okay, let me share my. Please give me access to screen sharing.
Was someone uploading your presentation, or are you uploading it yourself?
No, I have been given the access. Yeah.
Please be mindful that we need to finish by 5 o'clock.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. And could you maximize it so that we can see it more fully?
How about now?
Slideshow? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's good now.
Excellent. So I think I'm happy that the concept of hyperity has been introduced in the previous session. What I'm going to do is, before showing you the integrated planning and reporting toolkit, let me give you a very brief overview of the thinking behind the toolkit itself. Now, as you all know, countries have made a number of commitments, a number of agreements, and they are signatories to a number of continental and global agreements. So these are some of the sustainable development planning and financing frameworks. Now we have the Continental Agenda 2063. This is Africa we want. And then we have the Sendai Framework on disaster risk. And then on 2015 July, then we have the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on integrated national financing framework. That's financing for development. And globally, the global vision, that is what you call broadly the 2030 Agenda, is the Sustainable Development Goals. We have the countries have also signatories to this. And then we have the Paris Agreement on climate change. So you have these multiple agreements, multiple commitments that countries are signatories to. Now there are a number of questions emanating from these multiple agreements. Number one, do these different development agendas, both continental and global, speak each other? Meaning that, what's the level of alignment? Are there alignment or overlapping among these multiple development agendas? This is what you call horizontal coherence. And the second question is, how can these agendas be integrated into national frameworks and also produce a harmonized report for member countries? The third question related to this one is how can countries leverage this multiple development initiatives? These three issues are very central because countries are signatories to each of those different agreements. Now, these questions can be addressed through a coherent integration of these different development agendas into the national development frameworks. Now, to address those questions, ECA has developed a mainstreaming toolkit broadly known as integrated planning and reporting toolkit. Now, it is a planning toolkit. It is also monitoring toolkit. It is also a reporting toolkit. We'll come to that in a minute. Now, where is the mandate coming from? The Conference of Ministers requested ECA and African Union Commission to develop such kind of toolkit to help countries align multiple development agendas with national development plans. So that's the mandate coming from this the Conference of Ministers in 2016. Now, what is ECA's integrated planning and reporting toolkit? What does it do? Now, this toolkit facilitates the alignment of SDGs and Agenda 2063 with national development frameworks, meaning that it helps mainstream these different and multiple development agendas into national development frameworks. Now it can align at different levels, at goal level, at target level, and indicator level. I will come to that, each of these issues during the actual demonstration of the toolkit. It also allows countries to assess the relationship between different development agendas, meaning that to assess the extent of overlap between these different development agendas. And also it provides evidence and the quality of alignment by sector and by dimension, like for example, agriculture, industry, and so on. It also tracks progress in the implementation of both SDGs and Agenda 2063. For that matter, for any other development agenda. By so doing, it identifies gaps between the actual performance and the targets. And more importantly, as part of that toolkit, it also generates progress review reports, contribution to the voluntary national reviews for the high-level political forum. These are broadly the functionalities of the IPRT toolkit. So this is the thinking behind the design of the integrated planning and reporting. Now, recently we have produced two versions of the IPRT. One is a public version. The second one is a restricted version. Now, using this website, you can log in and you can navigate the toolkit. You can take this one. So with this background, let me go to directly the demonstration of the toolkit. Yes, so here we go. This is what you call ECA IPR. Now, this toolkit, can you see this my screen, colleagues, participants? Please confirm.
We can see the screen, yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah, so this is the integrated planning and reporting toolkit. So this is a software-based toolkit, a software-based planning and reporting toolkit. It's also monitoring toolkit. Now, it is available in 2 languages. Now, at the right corner here, what you see here, you can choose language. Now currently we have only in 2 languages, English version and French version, right? So if you are interested, you can use whatever language you prefer. Now on the left, what you see is that you have this menu, different modules here. So the first one is what we call the agenda module. So this is agenda module. What you see here is that you can see SDGs and Agenda 2063. Now we have this, for example, SDGs with different colors in 3 concentric circles. Circles having the same center, but different radiuses. Now the small circle shows goals, and the second medium circle shows the targets, and the outer circle shows you the number of indicators for SDGs. Now we have these different colors. The different colors conform to the colors of SDGs. We have, for example, 17 goals in SDGs with different colors. The colors here reflect those colors. Likewise for Agenda 2063, right? Agenda 2063, you have these different colors, goals, targets, and indicators. So this is what's called the dashboard, the agenda dashboard. Now you can also look at the extent of alignment between these 2 agendas. To what extent SDGs are aligned with Agenda 2063. Now you have this one. The vertical axis shows you the SDG goals, and the horizontal axis shows you the Agenda 2063 goals. Now you have this different colors here, green and red for the moment, and also gray. And the green shows you that there is there's the alignment at goal level is very strong between the two agendas. And the red one shows you the alignment at goal level between the 2 agendas is very weak. So this is the extent of alignment between the different goals. And for example, goal number 1 of SDG is related to 3 different goals of Agenda 2063. So this is the kind of mapping between the 2 different agendas. Now you have this, the first agenda, you have this, the dashboard presents like view. So you can click this Agenda 2030. Now you can see the different goals. And also you can also click the Agenda 2063. These are the 20 goals of Agenda 2063. These are available, it's a public information. There's nothing secret, there's nothing new here. Then what's more important here is the alignment between these 2 agendas that I showed you earlier. You can click this one. If you are interested to see the alignment between these 2 agendas, then you can click this one. You can see this is goal at the top. What is? Pardon? Okay. So what you see here is that at the top, goal, targets, and indicators. Now I'm looking at the goals level. Goals are indicated by letter G. That G1 is goal 1 for SDG. That is, the name is indicated here. And this goal is related to 3 different goals of Agenda 2063. This is Agenda 2063. And these 3 goals of Agenda 2063 are related to the first goal. And also, if you look, and here the 3rd column, what you see in the 3rd column is the alignment level, whether it is weak, strong, or partial. When you say strong, and the alignment level is said to be strong if the substance, the content, the description are identical. When we say the alignment level is weak, and the description, the content, and the substance of the two goals are similar but not identical. But there is some subjectivity involved here. Weak, and there's that's the remote relationship between the two goals in terms of substance, content, and description. So here you have this, you can map the different goals against goals, and you can see the extent of alignment at the right corner here. And this is goal level alignment. Again, you can look at the target level alignment. The target level T1.1 simply means that T refers to target. The first number 1 indicates the goal, the first goal, and the second number 0.1 indicates the first target. The first target of the first goal for Agenda 2063 or SDGs. And this is weakly related to the seventh target of the first goal of the first goal of Agenda 2063. So you can see that you have this. You can do all the alignments. For example, in SDGs you have 169 targets. Then you can map each of these targets to the corresponding targets of Agenda 2063. So this is how it looks like in terms of providing the extent of alignment for each of these targets. And also indicators, and also I think the same logic applies here also. Now indicators we denote by letter I. Now we have 1.1.1. What does that mean? Now you have the first indicator of the first target for the first goal for this SDGs. And the first indicator is related to the seventh indicator of the seventh target of the first goal for Agenda 2060. And the extent of alignment is weak. There is some relationship, but the substance, the description, the content of the two target indicators are remotely related. So likewise for this one, I 1.2.1, this is the first indicator of the second target of the first goal. That is related to two different indicators of Agenda 2063. And that is indicators, the seventh indicator of the seventh target and the as indicator of the as target for the goal number 1 of Agenda 2063. So the logic applies everything. You can repeat each for each indicator until you exhaust all mapping exercise. Now in SDGs, you have 244 indicators. Now you need to map each of these 244 indicators to the corresponding Agenda 2063 indicators. So this is, if you are interested between the two agendas, like Agenda 2063 and SDGs, this is the right module to execute. You can have access this module by the way. Now let us move to the second module, which is what you call the national module. Here, what you see here is country-specific information here. Now I have this one, the country. In my let me choose one country. Yeah, that is the now. This is I have chosen my preferred country. For example, Ethiopia. For example, this is Ethiopia's second growth and transformation plan. Now we assessed the extent of alignment of the country's second growth and transformation plan with respect to SDGs, with respect to Agenda 2063. Now, what you see at the top, what you see at the dashboard is We have SDG alignment. Now, Ethiopia's second growth and transformation plan is almost 80% aligned with SDGs. Now, what about at goal level? You can decompose this index at goal level, target level, indicator level. Now, at goal level, the plan is aligned, 94% aligned. At target level, the plan is 77% aligned. And at indicator level, the plan is 47% aligned. So there's a decomposition behind the toolkit. The calculation is there behind, inbuilt in the software system. So you have this, and likewise for Agenda 2063. The Ethiopia second growth and transformation plan is almost 54% aligned with the continental vision. That's Agenda 2060. And then you can see that the decomposition of this index at goal, target, and indicator level. Now, you can move on. For example, you can click, you can see here the country's result framework. Every country has a result framework. Every country has a policy matrix. You can edit this result framework. It is a country-specific result framework, what we call monitoring and evaluation framework. You can edit this one. Look at here at the right corner. What you see at the right corner is a maintain framework. Look here. This is maintain framework. You can edit. You can change. If I click this one, then I can see here goal, target, indicator. Now click this one, the first goal. What you see that this is you can change this spot, and you can also name this one. Right? You can name this one, and then you can save accordingly. And also further click this one. Then what if you click the first goal, you get the targets. Then the first goal for each goal has a target, and each target has an indicator. You can also edit this one accordingly. So by so doing, you can edit, you can change. You can change the results framework, and you can update it, and what have you, right? So for each goal, now if you click this one, the target, you have this indicator, right? The indicator is this one. So you have this number of indicators here. You can for the first goal, for the first target. So by so doing, you can edit and upload your national results framework. Yeah. So you can copy. By the way, this is you can copy. You can also download in terms of Excel, and you can also print it here. Now, the more important issue, once you upload your results framework into the IPRT system, you can also do the alignment exercise. Now, the alignment exercise is, let us look at the Ethiopia's growth and transformation plan vis-a-vis Agenda 2030. Now, here we go. Now here, goal number 1, no poverty. This is strongly aligned. Now, Ethiopia's second growth and transformation plan is strongly aligned with goal number 1 of SDG. And the same is true for goal number 2. And the green color shows that they are fully aligned or strongly aligned. You can also change and edit the extent of alignment here using the maintain framework. What you see, if you can click this one, now You can upload your, you can align, you can do the alignment exercise using this one. Now, the toolkit asks you, okay, this is goal number 1 for SDGs. Is this goal a priority for your country? Now, the answer, you can answer yes or no, or not applicable. There are some goals which are not applicable to any country. For example, for landlocked countries, goal number 14 may be less a priority for them. Then if you yes, you can answer yes or no. Then the second question is this goal aligned with any of your national plan goal? Yes or no? You can do this one. You can answer these questions in the toolkit itself. Now, if you answer yes in both cases, now the toolkit gives you whether you have to look at the extent of alignment. You have the fully aligned, partially aligned, weakly aligned. You have these 3 level alignment levels. Fully aligned means that the description, the content, the substance of the 2 goals are identical. So you can do the same for each of these goals. And likewise for targets, is this target a priority for your country? The answer can be yes or no, or not applicable. Is this target aligned with any of your national plan target? And the same question repeats over and over again. So you can also look at if you answer yes, you are asked to rate the level of alignment, whether it is fully aligned, partially aligned, or weakly aligned. Here at the bottom level, you can, if you click this one, you have these choices: fully aligned, partially aligned, and weakly aligned. Then once you do this, you save any changes here. You can save this one. And you can also, once you do the targets, move on the indicators. Is this indicator a priority for your country? You can say yes or no, and the same question. And you have to look and rate the level of alignment at this bottom level. Now, what you see here is once you do this exercise, you need to save any changes. So once you save, national plan alignment record has been saved successfully. So this is how you do the alignment in the IPRT system, right? So so that is at country level, and also you can also do the alignment offline. By the way, now you can do this alignment offline by downloading the alignment template here. You can download the template. You can find this one is the IPRT alignment template in Excel. Without any internet access, you can do offline. So the toolkit is available both offline and online. Now, the other one is monitoring. The monitoring, I think the monitoring one is nothing else, but you can do this one. It's nothing else but the national results framework. There's nothing new here. So there is a monitoring issue here. There's also evaluation issue. You have this result framework, which you can also display your results framework or monitoring framework, this one. So for the interest of time, I will focus on more substantive issues. Now, the third module is on Africa dashboard. Now, what you see here, the Africa dashboard shows you, okay, which countries are in progress in terms of SDG implementation or implementation of Agenda 2063. If you click the dashboard, the Africa dashboard, you see that immediately what you see here is that on the vertical axis, you have Agenda 2063. On the horizontal axis, you have SDG. You have these countries at different levels. You have Seychelles, you have Ethiopia, you have Uganda, you have Zambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and others. Now, if you put your cursor in each of these countries, now you get the extent of alignment that's it for SDG and Agenda 2063. So it has a dual meaning. You can read the alignment level for Agenda 2063. You can also read the alignment level for SDG. So it has a dual meaning for this single point. So these are countries that have been doing alignment for using this IPRT toolkit. Now, if you are interested to see and look into the alignment level for Africa-wide perspective for SDGs and Agenda 2063, you have on the vertical what you see here list of countries. On the horizontal axis, you have this SDG goals. Now you have this red, green, and also orange, and also there are other colors here, red. So these are the different alignment levels: strongly aligned, partially aligned, weakly aligned, and there's no alignment for each of these countries. The meaning of the colors are here: fully aligned, partially aligned, not aligned, and the gray ones are that are not processed. The same holds for Agenda 2063. You have a list of countries on the vertical axis. You have goals for Agenda 2063 on the horizontal axis. And you have the different colors in the matrix, shows you the extent of alignment at goal level, right? At goal level. So here you can choose. You have the different countries here. Start listed alphabetically, starting from Benin, and you have the different colors where their national development plan is uploaded into the IPRT system. So you can choose the focus of your country to make and upload your results framework and do the alignment and generate reports for the extent of alignment. The fourth module is progress assessment. What you see, the progress assessment is this one. Now, this is very interesting. As I said earlier, IPRT helps track progress in the implementation of SDGs or Agenda 2063 or the Paris Agreement or the Sendai Framework or the financing implementation. Now, what you see at the top here is that what you see two boxes here. Choose a region and choose a country. Now, the SDG Progress Assessment Graph, and now we have this for 2019. Now, let us focus on choose a region. If you are interested to see the progress of Africa in the implementation of SDGs, then click this Africa. Now, you have these different colors. Red is regressed. Blue is progress made since 2000. This is a progress in terms of poverty, the first goal. This is the progress in terms of the first goal. And this one is the progress for the second goal and so on. And the gray one, progress needed to achieve the target. This is the distance. This distance is should be filled. Africa should accelerate for the first to achieve the target set by 2030. This is a huge gap. It's a long way to travel to achieve zero poverty by 2030. Likewise for zero hunger. And there are good progress for example, goal number 3, for example, goal number 6, and others. Right? This is Africa-wide. Or if you are interested, for example, sub-regional level analysis like West Africa, here we go. The toolkit generates reports. Now, then, if you are interested to assess the progress of SDG in West Africa, here is the rice module for each of these different goals for SDGs. So you have this different mixed progress regarding West Africa. And you can also look at East Africa. Again, there's some progress in East Africa for some goals and so on. Now, this is, if you are interested at sub-regional office, you can also look at regional economic communities, COMESA, ECOWAS, ASE, whatever. But the logic, the mechanics remains the same. Now, if you are interested, for example, to assess countries' progress regarding SDG progress, for example, let me take Ethiopia, for example, here. Here, Ethiopia's progress regarding SDGs. Don't forget that this is a data based on global UN global database. So the global is the UN global database. So this is country-specific analysis progress. You can generate such kind of reports to showcase your country's progress with respect to SDGs or Agenda 2063 or what have you. Any agenda you are interested. Now Ethiopia's progress, for example, here, first good progress, for example, in the first goal, and also in some other goals as well. There is kind of backward regression in peace, justice, a strong institution, and so on. You can pick any country if you want. You have this list of countries, your choice. Burundi, Cape Verde, Cameroon, what have you. And then see the extent of progress of SDGs. Now, so you have this one. Again, you can see this progress assessment. You can generate this nice graphs using this this toolkit. The Inffs module is data. This is kind of data visualization, data point. As you see, IPRT is not only a planning tool, a monitoring tool, or a reporting tool. It is also a database system. Please mute your mic, please. Yes, thank you very much. So it is also you can see data levels, data points by each of these boards. So you can visualize these issues. Now IPRT also, you can also generate reports. Now you can generate reports. This is SDG. This is Agenda 2063. You can generate this one, and also you can generate policy matrix, and also you can generate goal alignment levels. Look here. If you click this one, you can generate goal alignment levels at different levels. You have this one. You have this national plan goal, align with SDG goal, and the extent of alignment here at the third column. You can download this in terms of PDF, right? You can download in terms of PDF. So you can generate reports, you can graphs, and whatever, right? So that's for the let me stop sharing here. So not really. No. Yeah. So so you can generate this this goal level alignment, target level alignment, indicator alignment, and everything here, right? Using this the last module. Now the question is, okay, this is the first phase of the IPRT. Now the IPRT can align multiple development agendas into national development frameworks. So this is a powerful toolkit. Now, this is, you can align your planning with SDGs and Agenda 2060. But the question is, how can one align financing module here? Now, we are working on this to develop the link between IPRT and national development frameworks. Now, I will share with you in a minute. Yeah. How we can link this. Let me share my screen here. Yeah. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is that, so you have now the background information on IPRT, and you have the conceptual underpinning behind the IPRT. Now, the question is, how can one link IPRT with integrated national financing framework? So we cannot have a separate platform. Now, planning and finance should be integrated. IPRT aligns these SDGs, Agenda 2063, other development agendas into national planning frameworks. So that should be linked to the national financing framework, and hence the role of the linkage between these two platforms. Now we are working. We have developed a conceptual framework to link INFF with IPRT. Now, inclusion of the financing module into the IPRT helps track progress and report both the supply and utilization of development finance together with plan implementation outcomes. Now, we can report these two joint outcomes: the supply of fund, the utilization of fund, and also plan implementation. Now, there are key questions that should be asked here. The first one is, how is the results framework aligned with the type of funding and the actual financial plan? Here is the link between financing and planning. The second question, to what extent the allocation of finance is aligned with national development priorities? Please mute your mic. The second question is, to what extent the allocation of finance is aligned with the national development priorities? This is a question that should be answered. Third question is, are financing allocations appropriate? What does that mean? Now we have these ways that short-term financing is used to fund programs or projects requiring long-term financing. That's where the appropriateness of financing allocation comes in. Then you see ways that the financing allocation is in the right direction or not. Another question coming one is are financing terms, meaning the short-term or long-term, aligned with program and project duration? We have short-term financing, long-term financing. We have also short-term programs or projects or long-term projects. To what extent these are aligned each other? Again, another question that can be answered is, which types of programs or projects are financed through concessional versus commercial financing? These are issues, practical issues that should be answered in linking development planning with finance. Now, using the IPRT displays, as you have seen earlier, in a dashboard, results framework, that's the results framework of your national plan, the type and the amount of finance flows. So this is where we establish the link between planning and the type and the amount of financial flows. It serves as a source of an integrated information for policymakers. Now policymakers can see their plan, the results framework, together with the financing flow allocation. IPRT automatically aligns programs and projects with SDGs and Agenda 2060. How? Look here. Normally, in a national development plan, budgets are allocated based on programs or projects. So these projects and programs should be mapped accordingly. How? Because IPRT already aligns national development plans with SDGs and Agenda 2060. Please, again, I kindly ask you to mute your mic. So IPRT, if you have these financial flows, you have this alignment between National Development Plan and SDGs and Agenda 2063, then the toolkit can automatically align programs, projects with SDGs and Agenda 2063. So the IPRT can link because programs, projects to national, continental, and global goals, targets, and indicators. This is the beauty of the toolkit itself. So it links national programs or projects to national goals, targets, and indicators. So you can link all in one platform. So you can also track the allocation of funds by program and toolkit by projects, and also you can also generate estimates of SDG and estimates of SDGs or Agenda 20 budgets for countries. Countries can estimate using this toolkit the amount of budget allocated for SDGs and on Agenda 2060. Now, I'm just extracting from the conceptual framework that we have developed to link IPRT and finance in a very coherent manner. So here is simply a simple extraction of the conceptual framework. So we have the name of the program, the name of the project, and also you can see whether this program or project is a priority for your country, and also which goal, target, indicator of the national development plan is linked to this program or project. You have goal, target, indicator, and also how this project or program is financed. We have these different financial flows in line with that action agenda. We have the public domestic, the private domestic, the public external, and it's different financial flows. And also you can also look at by terms. You have the project, you have this project duration, you have short term, long term, and you have this financing term by project, and you have this financing type, those that I have mentioned earlier. So you can align. Now the objective here is to align this financing type with national planning frameworks in a very coherent manner. Whether it's commercial or non-commercial, consensual or non-consensual, whatever. This can be displayed in IPRT in a dashboard. Now, in terms of conclusion, the IPRT is it's a planning framework. It's a planning tool because it prioritizes national development plans. It's a monitoring framework because it tracks the progress of implementation, and also it's also a reporting toolkit. Now you can also generate reports using this toolkit. Now it has kind of multiple advantages. It allows integration of multiple development agendas. into national development plans at goal, target, indicator levels. And again, you can also track progress towards achievement of these goals. It also helps track allocation, alignment, and use of development finance at country level. And then generate harmonized reports on the extent of alignment. And overall, I think by and large, in the IPRT, one can find all in one. Everything can find in a single platform. Thank you very much. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Professor Tadele. You can see I've just been going through the chat room, and I have easily 30 questions in the chat room, which unfortunately we don't have the time to respond to all of them. And I thought that maybe we can quickly respond to the more practical ones. And before I start reading those, I would like to invite Magloire. I might be murdering your name. Magloire Augustine Agwese, who has raised their hand. And then we shall pick a few questions from the chat room and pose them to you. And then we need to promise that the other questions will be fully answered in the report that we're going to produce, which must cover the questions that were raised and answered in the workshop. So, Magloire Augustine, do you want to ask your question?
Merci beaucoup, distingués participants. Merci à la CEA pour cette initiative très salutaire. Disons que c'est une contribution. Il faut remercier la CEA pour son appui dans le cadre de SDG Fund. Ça a permis au Bénin, que je représente, mon nom est Magloire Augustin Aguessi, je suis le directeur général des ODD au Bénin, et donc je parlais tantôt de cet appui qui nous a permis de faire des pas importants dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre des ODD au Bénin. D'abord, nous avons pu, avec cet appui, contribuer à la mise en place d'un cadre décennal pour l'accélération des ODD au Bénin. Nous avons pu réaliser des manuels d'indicateurs, autant sur 2063 et le changement climatique. Nous sommes en train, donc, grâce à cet appui, de faire d'autres pas importants comme les contributions locales volontaires. Mais je vais très vite glisser sur l'outil qui vient d'être présenté par le professeur Tadele, si brillamment présenté dans sa globalité. Et le Bénin a eu cette chance donc de bénéficier de cette formation, d'abord en novembre 2020, puis dernièrement donc en juin 2021 par 2 fois, ce qui a permis à mon pays, le Bénin, de disposer d'une masse critique de points focaux aptes à l'implémentation de cet outil. Ensuite, il est important donc de mentionner que cet outil, d'abord, du fait qu'il se base sur donc, le PND, oblige les pays à assurer une parfaite cohérence avec donc, les cibles des ODD, mais surtout avec donc, également l'agenda 2063, parfois oublié. Et donc, je crois que c'est un avantage important que nous devons souligner. Ensuite, il faut également préciser que l'IPRT permet donc de faciliter la prise en compte, n'est-ce pas, donc, de ces cibles, de ces agendas dans les plans nationaux, dans les programmes donc, de développement. Et le Bénin, aujourd'hui, est à une phase donc, de déploiement définitif donc, de cet important outil. Et arrivé donc à cette étape de cas de financement intégré, il faut reconnaître que le Bénin a amorcé donc, le processus de la mise en place de ce cas de financement. Et donc, avec, disons, d'importantes initiatives que nous avons pu donc mises en place à partir de l'évaluation du financement et développement et également le costing que nous avons pu réaliser et la mise en place donc de cellules de comités donc de mobilisation de financement. Et enfin, nous sommes en train d'enclencher actuellement l'élaboration d'une stratégie nationale sur donc le financement pour les ODD. À ce stade, donc, je pense que ces genres d'initiatives constituent des points d'accélération, surtout que nous sommes actuellement dans la décennie d'action. Et il convient donc, encore une fois, de remercier la CIA pour ces initiatives révolutionnaires. Alors donc, globalement, voilà ce que je voudrais dire et finir par dire que, effectivement, la phase critique qui reste, c'est de pouvoir réaliser un bon arrimage entre l'outil IPRT et également donc le cadre intégré de financement, surtout que les pays comme le mien, n'est-ce pas, qui au moment du déploiement donc, de l'IPRT n'avaient pas encore un cadre de financement, comment est-ce que ça va se passer par la suite? Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Director. I'd like to run back to Tadele, and I want to caution that we have interpreters who have been working hard and should have knocked off by now, but they've been kind enough to give us an extra 10 minutes. I've sent some questions to Tadele, and it would be good if you can answer those questions, and we'll see if we still have more time to answer the rest of the questions. Tadele, have you received the questions in the chat room that I've sent to you directly?
Yes, thank you very much, Alan, and also the useful remarks by participants. So let me start by saying we provide training to a number of countries. In West Africa, East Africa, and North Africa, and Southern Africa. We have also we have a series of training planned for this year as well, and upon the request of countries. So what we do, if countries request ECA for capacity building on this toolkit, we provide training to country planning experts and how to use the toolkit, how to upload data, how to use the data, how to align their national development plan with SDGs or NDCs or Agenda 2063. So this is something that we can provide training to member countries. So if we receive requests from countries, then we can schedule a training organize a training for the same. We have been doing this for a number of countries, for Cameroon, Comoros, Benin, Liberia, Niger, and also we have upcoming training scheduled in September and October, November, and December. So if you are interested, if your country is interested, please send us a request, official request to ECA, so that we can provide training to member countries. So we have experts on this. We have a pool of experts. The training can be organized both online and in person. So the last month we have been providing in-person training because of relaxation in travel. If COVID is a challenge, then we can organize virtual training on the toolkit. So it is up to the preference of countries to choose the modality of training on the toolkit. Now let me come to specific questions. Now, once we train country planning experts, then it is the responsibility of experts, country experts, to upload data, to verify data into the IPRT system. So countries' data are protected. these planning experts can have restricted access to those data. So it is not a public data. Countries' data will not be a public data because there is a privacy here. So we need to protect the privacy of country information, unless and otherwise countries are willing to disclose their data to the wider public. Otherwise, their data, any data uploaded into the IPRT system is protected. Only national experts can use and visualize and work on their own database using the IPRT toolkit. They will be given to access to upload the data, to align their national development plan with SDGs, Agenda 2063, the Paris Agreement, NDCs, Sendai framework, what have you. So it is managing the data is both the responsibility of ECA and also the national planning institutions. Thank you. Alan, are you here? Are you there?
Oh, sorry, I've been talking to myself. Oh, boy. Now we have 5 minutes to go, and I think you've answered a couple of practical questions. One which was on who uploads the data, but there was another question about whether people can have access to the IPRT individually. And then there was another question as to whether the IPRT is linked to the UN info, or would one need to add national information separately? If you could quickly respond to those, that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay. Let me quickly respond to the access issue. Now, as I said earlier, at the very beginning, you can log in the IPRT as I showed you earlier. There are public versions. The public version are 2: agenda module and progress assessment module are public versions. So you don't need any login credential to access those 2 modules. But the rest, you need to get login credentials because of data protection. So once you receive training on IPRT, we can provide you login credentials to upload your data into the IPRT, to do the alignment, and to do the reporting, to track the progress. So we provide you the login credential once you get the training. Otherwise, for public version of IPRT, you can just log in now without any restriction. So I'm not aware of. Yes.
Professor Tadele, when you say once we do the training, you can provide you, who is you here? Is it the government or is it the trainees, the participants, the instructors?
No, I think, look, what we have been doing is the following. Upon the request of countries, we provide training to planning experts
in the country.
In the country, for example, for Cameroon or for Benin, for example, Benin. Then, for experts, because they are working to upload their national development plan into the IPRT system, they should be given to access. Because they are trained now, they should be able to access the software in order to upload it, in order to edit it, in order to track progress. So we provide, after training, we provide login credentials to national experts to access their own database, to upload their own national development plan, nothing else. So it's the access issue comes after the training, not before the training. So if someone is interested to look into the functionalities of the toolkit, then there is a public version, which you can log in right now. and see, navigate the functionalities of the toolkit. Otherwise, training is required to get the details of the login credentials.
Adele, there was a question actually on that last point. Is it possible to make alignment analysis without registration in the website? Does that necessarily mean public version can provide alignment analysis?
No. The public version is public. It is. You can in the public version. What you do now? What you do is you can do the alignment between Agenda 2063 and SDGs, or you can do the alignment between the Paris Agreement or National Development. The Agenda 2063. What have you? Between agendas. I'm sorry.
I know we are coming to the end of a very long day, and people are tired. But yes, just complete and we close.
So the public version is has only two modules: the agenda module and the progress assessment module. That is it. Okay. Now, using the public version, you cannot upload your national development plans into the IPRT system. So in order to upload your national development plan into the IPRT system, and then you need to get trained on the toolkit. So training is required. The public version is simply to see the functionalities of the toolkit itself, nothing else.
One last question, and then we wind down. Some people were looking at the data you're presenting, and they could see for their countries that there were some indicators or targets where there was no information at all for their countries. Could you just explain a bit why that was?
Yes, I think I said earlier this one in terms of a question. Now this assessment is based on UN global database. It is not coming from country-specific information. That might be a discrepancy. So currently we are working to update the data based on the national database. So the information presented on the progress assessment is entirely based on UN global database. That's for illustration purposes. It may not reflect current country circumstances. After all, it is the 2019 data. It's not the recent data. So currently we are working to update this data to make it more up to date and relevant. And we are working also another version of this toolkit to make sure that countries can track SDG progress by their own. They can edit, they can upload, they can track progress SDGs. Over to Alan.
Thank you very much. I think the remaining questions will be captured. I'm going to send them to Adele so that he can have full answers provided. We shall find another way of giving them to you before we actually produce the report, but they will also be captured in the report to just make sure that the clarity around some of those areas that you have requested is provided. Now, thank you very much for this. Has been a very long session from 2 o'clock up to 5:15 now, almost 5:15. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is just the beginning. As mentioned by Ms. Pigo at the beginning, we have 4 stages in this INFF. Tomorrow we shall deal with 2. The first one, which is the assessment and diagnostics methodology, and the second one, which is the design and implementation of financing strategies. Those 2 will be the focus for tomorrow's presentations. Very exciting presentations ahead of us. And these also are promising that there will be interactive group activity. So come prepared for tomorrow. And then we shall have more, the other 2 stages, the mechanism for monitoring, review, and accountability, and the design and implementation of governance and coordination arrangements. We shall have those on the day after tomorrow. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to thank you and let you know. Oh, Moro had a hand. Moro, can that wait until tomorrow, or do you have a quick question? Very quick question, Moro, before I close. Moro? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to call today's session to a close, and we shall meet tomorrow again at 2 p.m. East African time. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Merci pour les.
Thank you so much.
Merci, au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. À demain.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. Bye bye. À demain.
Masalama. Masalama.
Merci.
Merci. Allez, au revoir. À demain. Inch'Allah.
Merci. Merci.
Bye bye from the Gambia.
Bye. Dux.
Yeah.
I